Hi, I'm Eric Khoo, director of Tatsumi, and I'm on cloneweb.
Why did you choose to make an animation movie, at least for the biography part?
Yeah, you know, for the longest time I've been a big fan of Yoshiro Tatsumi's, and as much as I loved his short stories and all that, I never in my wildest dreams thought I'd ever bring them onto the big screen. But having read Adrifting Live in 2009 and then discovering Tatsumi and what he had gone through and created Kagika, I was very compelled to do a tribute film to Tatsumi, and I was thinking that since I am such a fan of his artwork, even for the biographic sections, I didn't want to have live action in there. To keep it all seamlessly, his artwork and his style. Yeah.
Did you thought at first for live action?
Well, you know, the thought did occur to me, right? But I somehow felt it would be too much, right, to combine live action with his short stories. And since, you know, the way I loved his artwork for Adrifting Live, which is a departure from his earlier style back in the 70s, I thought it'd be lovely to put them together. And then on top of that, for the autobiographical sections to have color put in as well. It was actually about 3 to 4 months of actually spending time with my team of animators, headed by Phil Mitchell, a Canadian. I had Filipinos, hit animators, Indonesian young kids just out of school. And literally I told them, we do not need a new storyboard for the film.
Yeah.
The storyboard would be derived from the panels of Yoshiro Tatsumi.
Yeah.
And we'll just let it come in first. You can do that. Thank you. And with a couple of months, I showed them all Ozu films, because you see, the interesting thing is that the animation team, there's not a single Japanese in there, right? And we sometimes needed very much also to verify with Tatsumi Sensei in terms of what color was the post box in Osaka back in the 50s. You know, there are things we just don't know about. And thank heavens for the internet, right? We could get the information out there, we could refer. And similarly, I spent a lot of time in Singapore, and my animators were on a small island in Indonesia, where every day I was getting rushes and, you know, information to look at. So the only time when I actually did employ live action were with some of the stories, in order for the animators to know the timing in which I wanted the characters, when they're not speaking, to move, how long would that scene be or that shot be. So later on, they would use that reference that I've edited with live action to create animatics for timing, and then ultimately for the movements of the characters. We never wanted to do just another Japanese anime. We wanted almost like Kagika in motion.
Okay. Yeah. So, did you choose to make this movie because it was on Tatsumi, or because you wanted to talk about manga?
Tatsumi.
Tatsumi.
Yeah, it's just Tatsumi.
Okay.
I was overwhelmed by Adrifting Live. And seriously, after I read the 800-page book, right, I couldn't sleep. I mean, 3-4 nights I was just like thinking about him, going back to his old stories, reading the comics again, and I thought, now I have it, you see. I've always wanted to tell his stories and share his stories with a bigger audience, but if I put that together with his life, you could have a unity and have a feature film.
Yeah. And how is it very different to direct a live action movie from an animation movie?
You know, it is very difficult and different, and you see, one of the things I really like is pictures. So with most of my live action films, at most I'll take maybe 18 days to shoot, right? And with this film, the animation took 8 months. And of course, I mean, though we've done our prep work for the first 3 months and all, when the animators are animating and doing several different stories simultaneously, and I'm watching stuff, you're never quite sure what it's going to be like. Whereas, like, if you shoot a live action film, and these days, you know, shooting on digital, what I shoot, what I get, I know I can cut it, I can assemble it, and that's pretty much what it's going to be. But with this, the layers and the time. So we started work in January 2010. We had done most of it by December period, but in the months, there was always a gray area here and there. You know.
And so the animation in Tatsumi is kind of, you know, limited. Is it an homage to the manga, or
that's the way we saw manga move, which would have been a homage, yes.
So that's why you decided to make like frame by frame.
Like frame by frame, you know, and then
do you want to make, you know, Tatsumi is not very well known in France, at least. So with this movie, do you want to make Tatsumi known in other countries?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the whole purpose of making this film is to, in a way, share him with the rest of the world. So, I mean, I think you have fans of good wine, and I would say that definitely Tatsumi and some of his contemporaries are very good vintage wine, but they are old, you know. I remember when I first met Tatsumi, he goes, "Why do you want to make a film on a dinosaur?" Right? And now it's to reintroduce and to tell the rest of the world, look, there's such a man, you know, he's still around, and he's definitely one of the pillars of the landscape of manga. Yeah.
And so Tatsumi worked with you in the
Yes.
movie?
Very much so. Tatsumi collaborated with me on all the voiceover sections, the chapters of his life, right down to even the recordings of some of the characters.
Yeah.
Because you see, his mother, you know, is from Osaka. The Osakanese speak with a certain dialect. So I would always run him these voices just to see whether he was comfortable. Definitely for Tezuka, because he's a big fan of Tezuka, you know, and he was involved through the process of the whole film.
And did he see the movie, the entire movie?
We watched it together in Cannes.
What did he think?
I don't know whether it was a joke, but at the end of the film, he hits me and he says, "You played me out, all right? You used my voice." I don't know. He claimed he thought his voice was there just as a guide for a professional voiceover to be him. I said, "But Sensei, this is you, you know," and it's great with his voice. So at the end, he was very happy with it. Yeah.
Okay. So, how was the welcoming of the movie in Japan?
It was beautiful. In Tokyo, there was standing ovation, massive applause.
Oh yeah.
And it was, frankly, I mean, I was happy, a young audience.
Oh yeah. And were the Japanese like surprised that a director from Singapore decided to direct a movie about one of their greatest authors?
I think Yoshihiro Tatsumi was surprised too.
Yeah.
It's like a Chinese from Singapore, you know? And I think that is sort of like, it's always us, you know, it's like, why didn't the Japanese do it? I said, I don't know. But it's interesting, and I guess in some ways also, for Tatsumi Sensei, he's happy that, you know, a foreigner, in a way, you know, made the film. Similarly, like a lot of his works also were getting big attention in Europe, you know, back in the 80s and all that, you know, with Spain publishing his works. And I think as much as, you know, he is Japanese, he gets a kick when foreigners sort of like fancy his works.
And do you know if before your movie there was other projects of adaptation?
Actually, there was. I think some short, and there was interest actually, and I think he did sign something, but unfortunately the thing fell through. For Hell to have been developed into a live-action film, the Hiroshima one. And if I'm not wrong, it was by a European company, and who they were thinking about to act in it was Big Kitano.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I think when he met me also, he was a bit apprehensive, like, you know, there had been all these like offers and this and that, but nothing really came through. So, I think when he finally saw the film, it was like, wow, okay, it did happen. And I remember his parting shot to me, because we were in this old, dingy cafe in the basement, in a very sort of interesting section of Tokyo called Jinbucho. It's where all the old rental bookshops used to be, and now it's like second-hand bookshops, and Sensei's office is located there as well. After 3 hours of conversation with the translator, he told me, "I give you my blessings to make the film." And then I was really happy. Then I was thinking, like, how am I going to do this? I've never done animation before, right? Then he says, "How long is it going to take?" And I said, I don't know, maybe a year, 2 years. It was that long? I'm getting old. Then we were pushed to rush it out. And I mean, I think really I was so fortunate to have the team I had, the animators, you know, and ultimately also to have the voice of a very important theater actor, Tetsuya Beisho, who amazingly, because he's got a radio show, right, which runs from Monday mornings to Friday mornings. So he could depart Friday afternoon, arrive in Singapore Friday night, record all of Saturday, Sunday morning, and leave Sunday afternoon to go back for the recording of the morning show. He did 7 characters.
Oh yeah.
You know, in Hell, he does the protagonist, he does the guy who's sick, and he was wonderful. And the great thing also is, I think with this particular film, you know, it was a labor of love from all of us in every department. And I remember after meeting Yoshihiro Tatsumi in Tokyo, when I went back, I told everybody, he's gonna win you over. And true enough, when he came to Singapore, he blew everyone away. So everybody, you know, he's got this wonderful sort of aura around him, and he really is a very earnest, humble, highly intelligent, with a lot of dark humor. And he loves to berate himself. He loves to cut himself down, you know. But with all that, he's very funny, and yet there is a certain quality of real intense loneliness and sadness, and you know, I think that's why he's so great at what he does.
And Tatsumi is an author who pushes back the limits of his heart, Is this something that you want to do that motives you?
You know, I think, like when I was talking to him in my first meeting, I said, you know, a lot of people describe your material as black, dark, perverse, you know, insane, horrifying. But I said, what I love about your stories is that there is this deep, profound humanity, and that he cares for the little man out on the streets. And in some ways, because I was introduced to his comics decades ago, some of my early films, I think, were very laced with that longing of the characters in some of his stories. And I think in terms of sensibility and for us to sort of click in many ways, like he's a big fan of my last film, My Magic. Yeah. You know, there are parallels.
And you know, Tatsumi met Tezuka when he was 14.
Yes. And
you met Tatsumi. Was it a dream for you too?
It was a dream. That's why it was really kind of scary when I was waiting for him at the bar. And exactly at 3 o'clock, I saw this tall man walk in, and he looks at me. It's like, hi. It was sort of like a nervous sort of thing. And you know, for me, I'm basically a pessimist. So there were all these things thinking, what if we hate each other? What if he just walks out? And, you know, all these things were playing in my mind. But after 15 minutes or so, you know, when I opened up my notepad, and then he could see that I could draw, you know, because I'd done all the sketches, I could feel he was happy, because even I think with his Canadian publisher, Drawing Quality, the head of the company is an artist. Yeah. So I think there's this sort of like common ground that, you know, if you draw, he draws. And in that sense, it was almost, I guess for me, the same sort of feeling.
And when you asked him that you wanted to make an animated movie about
short stories,
short stories about his life, how did he react?
I said I want to bring your short stories to the big screen before mentioning about his life.
Okay.
And he said, are you sure you want to do that? When people sit down and watch all my short stories together, don't you think after the cinema they will go and commit suicide? I said, yeah, that's why we need to put an element and ray of hope. We have to put your life story into the film. So segments of your life and your short stories. And so in my notepad already, I had done the rough sort of structure, like the parts of his life and the stories that I wanted. You see, I mean, I had about 15 titles, and then I had to sit down with him and okay, which one do you feel? And personally, I mean, for me and him, right, our favorite actually in the collection is Beloved Monkey.
Oh yeah, and about the short stories, why those 4 short stories?
Those 5.
Five, sorry.
Because initially I wanted 6, but I knew already when we started doing the animatics, it would be like close to 2 hours. And I said, no, we just have to let one go. Because that was a little similar to Beloved Monkey. It's the story Abandon the Old. There were other stories that came from the earlier or the later parts of the 60s, like Sewer, Test Tube. These were ideas, I mean, stories that I also wanted, but I felt, though I liked them a lot, they maybe not the ones to be in this collection, you know, as an introduction to Yoshiro Tatsumi's materials.
And those 5 stories, were it your 5 favorite stories?
Well, you know, when I read his comic book 25 years ago, the one story that just blew me away was Goodbye. Yeah. And I knew Goodbye would not be in the beginning of the film; it would be the last story in the film. You know, and of course I won't ruin it, but that last scene where you see Sensei drawing, that was an idea I had already, where it's going to be like the Pinocchio moment. Yeah. All this I spoke to him about when I met up with him. That there were certain things, but I wanted at the end also maybe to have the 2 just post-war, right after post-war stories as bookends. Like you've got Hell and you've got Goodbye, and then somewhere in the 3 the more contemporary stories. Yeah.
How much Tatsumi was an inspiration for you in your previous movies?
I think he's always been there somewhere. You know, it's like the characters. I think, you know, when you watch Be With Me, he really liked the big fat man. I don't know whether you saw Be With Me, the one who gets knocked down by a girl. And the moments and the framing
Yeah.
He likes the framings. And you see, for Tatsumi Sensei, as a little boy, I mean, he was really engulfed in cinema. He loved to go to watch European films, and he actually preferred, I think, more so the French movies to the American films, because there was no real villain or hero. There were more great characters. And for the film, actually, I had a big section of Tatsumi going to the cinema. But as we were working on the animatics, I realized I couldn't, because that would bust the timeline again, you see. So there were a lot of things that I later on had to take up.
And so, what about Osamu Tezuka?
Yeah, I mean, as a little boy, I mean, as Astro Boy.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and with all his other stuff. And I mean, I think also for Tezuka, he also felt the wave of Kogiga coming, and he had to come up with darker characters like Black Jack, you know, or the other famous author, that boxer guy, the Crying Joe guy. These were artists almost intimidated by this wave of Kogiga, and all their stuff had to then become a bit more adult to capture that whole new audience in the 60s.
So you're going to show the movie in Angoulême?
Yes,
yeah.
I am.
Are you aware of French or European comics? Do you read?
You know, to be totally honest, I used to do cartoons and comics, right?
Yeah.
So as a young person, right, I mean, I was reading everything that I could that was translated into English.
Yeah.
So along the way, there were some of the French titles, but it was so long ago that had been translated that I would read. And I can't really remember whether they're exactly like Belgium or French, but there was one that was pretty interesting called Brand Xerox by a guy called Liberator.
I don't know.
Okay, you're not into comics that much.
I am, but I don't know this one,
right.
Actually.
Well, I mean, we're talking about really old stuff, and you know, even if I go on about some of the Japanese comics, when I tell the Japanese kids today, they're like, "Huh, who's that?" You know, like Paranormal of Hell, Hino, and of course, I mean, there were the U.S. independents that are still evergreen, like your Robert Crumbs or your Harvey Peckar's. But with the European comics, there were like Milan Manaro, right? I mean,
yeah.
So whatever I could get my hands on, I would have a look at.
And about Tatsumi again, have you thought about making like Spielberg did for Tintin, like a performance capture?
You see, like I always said from day one, it has to look like his drawings, moving. And then right now, I mean, I think a lot of these young animators, they can really forge his drawings. You know, if they drew something now, you think it's Tatsumi's. They got so close to it. They had to, no other way. No Pixar look. It just had to be old school.
Do you still read manga?
To be honest,
no, not really.
I hardly read comics these days.
Yeah.
But there was a period when I would read a lot of. I've always loved independent comics, but when I was a little boy, I grew up reading Marvel comics.
Yeah.
My favorite was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Because all these characters seemed to have problems. They were lonely. They were sad. And at that time when I was a kid, all the DC comics, this was before Dark Knight, were all so fluffy and bright, and I just hated DC. So yeah, I mean, I grew up on Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, even Captain America waking up in the 60s, and it was like A Man Out of Time, Daredevil. I mean, these were real characters for me. As I got older, I started reading, you know, Robert Crumb, and I read like Chester Brown, you know, Daniel Close. Now, okay, there's one artist, artist that I'm crazy about, Craig Thompson.
Yeah. And
I've been crazy about him since Blind Kids and all that, right? So I'm so happy he's in Angoulême. And my big boy, my eldest son, who's 18, is also a big fan of Craig Thompson.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, Dad, could I come with you? I said, you got school. So yeah, I really want to meet up with him when I'm there. And of course, Art Spiegelman with Mouse. I mean, what a genius comic.
Talking about Spider-Man and Captain America, what did you think of the adaptation?
Okay, I love Spider-Man #2.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because that's based on my favorite Spider-Man comic, Spider-Man No More, issue 50. Yeah, and he really brought that to life.
Oh yeah.
Captain America, sad to say, was really bad.
Okay. And what about animation movies? Do you still watch animation movies?
Yeah, I mean, I've watched Tintin. Yeah. It's a far departure from the comic. Whatever I can get my hands on. I mean, I'll watch the Puss in Boots.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe.
But you know, the one animation film I really love, but I love more so just the beginning of it. Maybe the first 40 minutes is Wall-E.
Wall-E, yes.
It's genius.
The silent part.
Yeah, I don't like him when he goes to the fat spaceship. Those silent parts when he comes back.
Well, there is one one part when in the space that I really love is the dancing part. You know, I love this part in the movie. It's really.
And for me, that scene that just killed me and made me cry so much was up when he's climbing up the hill with the woman. I tell you, the wife.
Yes.
I was like, wow, you know, and you know, I think like Pixar and even Toy Story 3, right? The great thing again is that you can relate to the characters.
Yeah.
And I feel, you know, these are the special moments of an animation film, you know, and they make you cry. The one I could never get into was Cars. For me, they were just too car-like.
It's really for children, and I think the other Pixars are for family.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, that's right.
And okay, what about movies in general? What is the last movie you saw in cinema?
The Artist.
And you liked it?
I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it. I cried also.
Okay, last question. What is your next project?
I've got a few actually that I'm toying
Yeah.
with. Actually, the great thing is Yoshiro Tatsumi, after the movie, he wrote me a script.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah. It was an idea that has been toying around in his head for 3 years, and he was going to do it in a comic. And he decided, okay, I will not make this into a comic, but I'll do this as a script. And he gave it to me. So when I was in Tokyo a couple of months back, he said, here it is. And I got it translated. It's fantasy, and it's his first attempt at a love story.
Okay, and do you want to make it for an animation movie or?
You see, animation for me is the first and the last.
Okay.
and since, you know, both Tatsumi Sensei and myself, we like this movie, I'm scared to try to repeat it and we don't like it, and it'd be sad, right? And also animation takes so long.
Yeah.
So if we ever do collaborate again, the next one will be live action.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So.